Standing up in McKinney. This is According to Kallas. I have completed 750 episodes, numbered episodes, of According to Kallas. I think this is both the end of that and the beginning of something new. There have been a whole lot of things going on, but we're going to talk about them, and we're going to move on. So before I get there, before I start with something new, let me remind you, the show, in fact, is not going away. It's transforming. It's rebranding. It's becoming something more than what it was. So I need you to subscribe, follow, join me, right? We're going to migrate potentially permanently out of the Podbean hosted show here. I can't promise you that there won't be on occasion a special episode popping up on the According to Kallas feed, but I'm going to try and morph everything over to the new show. So I will be asking you to join me there. I'm going to spend a little time at the very end talking about it. But as this is both the conclusion of one show and the launch of another show, I want to just say the show has not been without its challenges, but it has been rather joyful, enjoyable, and a little cathartic here and there. But I've always wanted to leave my listeners with some hope, with a way forward, something to move forward with. I think that arc has come to an end under the guise of According to Kallas, and we need to move on to something a little more broad, but just as specific. So I'm going to invite you to join me at the Texas First podcast. Now I looked around. I didn't find another podcast with that same name. I know some people talk about Texas stuff. I know I've been very Texas centric. I mean, realistically, I've probably got, 75 episodes. There were either Texas Tuesday or Texas Tuesday. I think the future lies in figuring out what's best for Texas. The future lies in promoting Texas and putting Texas in a better position overall. And now I'm going to take this time in transition. Okay, so I tried to keep my podcast, what I would say, very local. A lot of McKinney stuff, Collin County stuff. Always talking about Texas. You know, generally, when I was doing it 5 days a week or 4 days a week, once a week. That's a lot of bandwidth. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of effort. And to be honest, there wasn't a return. Not to justify the amount of time. But one of the things that I always felt like was the most important part of what I was doing is to rally people, get them excited, get them to see a positive future. It's very, very easy to be down. It's very, very easy to be negative. On the flip side, it's also very, very easy to fall into the false sense of security. Oh, we got Trump elected. Everything's going to be fine now. Oh, the Donald's back in office. We won. It's game over. It's never over, folks. I hate to use the term, but I'm going to say it anyway. Evil never rests, right? The other part of this scenario is I've gone to some lengths to not go down the name calling path, to not spend all of my time just being derisive, but trying to be positive, trying to give a different point of view or a different way of looking at things. I've always been quite honest about being a conservatarian, being a little L libertarian, being a reluctant Republican, all those things. And as time has gone on and my involvement has expanded and become deeper, it just became clear to me that there are some things I need to do differently. It became clear that I can't do this by myself. Not that I ever really thought it was a one-man show, but I needed to find a way to recruit other people, to get other people excited and involved. And that's just kind of where I'm at right now. And how do I do that? How do I do that well? What does that look like? Well, the first step is acknowledging the, I think, quite nice run I had here on this show. There are very few podcasts that get over 100 episodes. Fewer still that get over 500. I don't see that I'm ever going to have 3,000 episodes like some of the podcasters that I listen to. That's not my future. I had an enjoyable run with this self-named show, but now I see the value of trying to get guests, trying to get subject matter experts and talk to them about what does it look like to put Texas first? What does it look like to improve Texas? Now I know some people are out there, well, Texas is, awesome. Texas is great. It's the promised land. All those things can be true, but it could still be improved. Just because you've got a Cherry 63 Corvette doesn't mean that you can't do something with it to make it nicer, sharper, more flashy, whatever your terminology is for you old car guys out there. There's always something you can be doing. So what really hammered this home was this weekend, right? It was Independence Day week last week. I took the week off, tried to spend some time with family and friends and make the most of independence. Multiple times I couldn't help but think to myself how we've let those people down. How we're not the free country we think we are. We're not the envy of the world. We're not on the right trajectory. We're not, I guess the city of the hill is what some would say, but we're not an example for other countries to follow, which is not to say that the opposite is true. It just means there's a lot of room for improvement. It wasn't lost on me that the last session, the Texas legislature, they found ways to take away liberty. They found ways to increase taxes. They found ways to increase regulation. They found ways to do the very things that we wouldn't prefer for them to do. But that's what we accept that. The founding fathers threw down over much less than what we tolerate right now. And I just don't know what the right response is anymore. I mean, I'm grateful that I have one of the few dissenting congressmen in the U.S. House of Representatives. I'm grateful that I have quite decent representation both in the Texas House and the Texas Senate. I'm grateful that at least one of my U.S. senators is what I would say a champion of liberty. Is he perfect? No. Is he better than probably 98 other senators? Yes. Unfortunately, that bar is becoming lower and lower. But and again, not to slight on Ted. We're blessed to have Ted Cruz. We could have another John Cornyn. Just saying. And on the grand scheme of things, John Cornyn is still probably better than 55 to 60 of the other senators. I mean, I wish he was better than 75 or 80. And you could probably argue where he's at on that scale, but there's room for improvement. But once again, does it really matter? We send 43 people there to the U.S. House. We send 2 guys there from the Senate. Realistically, they're basically creatures of the swamp after their first couple of terms. Some hold up better than others. Some, remember their principles and fight the good fight. But by and large, it's a losing battle. It's a orderly retreat on liberty, if you will. I suspect we've got 2 or 3 really solid Republicans in the U.S. Congress. There were 5 people that voted no to that big bill, right? It wasn't perfect. Didn't expect perfect. But I can't believe we just sat there and let an appointed parliamentarian overrule the will of the parties that rule the House and the Senate. And I understand, look, as much as I am a party guy, my loyalties to the Constitution, my loyalties to the state of Texas, not so much my own party. But the party's how you get things done. And the party's the team that I'm on. So I'm going to work with my team, and I'm going to get the best deal that I can, which is what all of our state reps and state senators and U.S. congressmen and U.S. senators are supposed to be doing for us on our behalf. And by and large, mildly successful, maybe. But again, we're always playing the orderly retreat. Name the last time that liberty expanded. Name the last time that we defended more rights than we took away. Name the last time that we eliminated government red tape rather than added to it. Oh, to be sure, there are the anomalies that slip through or find their way in the net positive column. But more often than not, they're the exception than the rule. Again, keeping this in mind, I don't know that we can ever fix DC. I know I'm rehashing things I've said before on this podcast, right? That's one of the reasons why I kept According to Kallas so local. So much time was spent talking about McKinney and Collin County. And we just tried to top out at Texas. But the reality is there's just so many listeners that want to hear about municipal follies, silly school board stuff. They want meat and potatoes politics. I don't know that they necessarily want policy, but they want ideas. They want solutions. Now, I have lots of ideas, but if I don't have anybody to bounce those ideas off of and vet them out, I'm just going to continue on a monologue. And I don't think that is going to suit the direction I want to go. Likewise, I know there are lots of other people out there, some of which I know personally, people that have these ideas, potential solutions to a lot of things that we're looking at. And I would love to be able to sit down and spend time and do, 45-minute episode and a conversation with these folks and put it out there for you, the listeners, you, the Texians out there, to listen and say, hey, this is how we can improve Texas. This is how we can be putting Texas first when we're making our decisions, doing things around this country. Now, what does that look like? I don't really know yet. In fact, I'm going to be quite honest with you. In this transition time, I'm probably going to be gone for a good 30 days. One, because I'm going to try and put together material that's worthy of your time. Two, I'm going to try and schedule out some quality people to interview to talk about specific solutions or ideas that could be implemented to improve Texas or put Texas first? Now, I know a lot of folks out there are wondering, how is this any different than what you've basically been doing? Well, one, I'm going to spend almost all my time now talking purely on Texas. We're going to talk about theory and practical application. We're going to talk about, one, how do we protect our sovereignty as a state? And two, how do we establish a bright line concerning Texas versus the other states and Texas versus the feds? And how do we do that in a way that, one, follows the current Constitution of the United States, and two, recognizes and builds upon the Texas state constitution? That may mean we spend a little time talking about individual portions of the Constitution. It may mean that we spend some time looking about how could we improve it, or are there different amendments or different things that could be used that would be actionable. Now, I know there's a lot of folks out there that are fearful of the word Texit. They're concerned that Texas can't go on its own, or Texas shouldn't go on its own. I need you all to be willing to put that on the shelf, put it aside. We're not talking about that per se. Everything we're going to talk about going forward, when this retooling is done, is how do we promote Texas, protect Texas, and set Texas up as the strongest partner in the union. Now, if at some point in the future that means we stand alone, or some point in the future we are forced to separate for various reasons, that's also going to be building alliances. That's also going to be, how do we interact, especially if we're, we got to think ahead of time. What do we need to do right now? What do we need to put in place right now? So at some point in the future, we're prepared for what may or may not happen. And here's the other thing to consider here. It may never, ever happen. And I don't necessarily see that as the end of the world. I see it as an opportunity to be in the best place to do the best thing for the people of Texas right here, right now. And if at some point in the future, those good, solid decisions, those investments now pay a huge dividend later, so much the better. I'm going to ask everybody that listens to me to share the show, to tell other people about it. The idea is to get a conversation. The idea is to discuss the what ifs, but also the how can we aspects of the scenarios here. I don't claim to have an answer for everything. I don't claim to even know all the questions. I know there's half a dozen people I know that are part of T&M that probably have a lot of experiences that I could tap, but I don't necessarily envision this as a T&M show. I envision this as a Texas show. I envision this as, how can we make Texas the best that it can possibly be? And if at some point in the future that means we go alone, we go alone. But that's also the underlying statement that I've said many times over the past year or two. I think Texas would be best if we had de facto autonomy. De facto sovereignty, right? De facto independence. That we would be able to do these things on our own, but not necessarily jettison union. Not necessarily break the binds that tie us together. We could get the best of both worlds, but we have to be willing to do the work now. We have to understand what's at play. I mean, when we look at the issues, and I know it's terrible to bring this up considering what happened this last week in Central Texas, but potable fresh water is a real problem for a lot of Texas. We sit on the Gulf Coast. How in the world do we not have our own desalination plants up and running? We are the masters of pipelines for oil and natural gas. How can we not figure out how to move seawater to become potable water. It's distillation. I mean, that's what we do. This is Texas. If nothing else, we have all those solar plants out there. You know, we could simply use the heat generated there to steam the water and break it apart. That we would be left with a salt and fresh potable water. It amazes me that we're not doing this already. And I got to ask myself, why not? These are things that we need to talk about. We need to discuss. We need to sort them out. Now, this new show, I mean, it may last 20 episodes. It might last 200 episodes. I really don't know. My goal is to have a single episode out once a week, preferably on Tuesday, i.e. Texas Tuesday, and talk about a single issue for the entire period of time, presumably with a guest that knows more about the issue than I do. So I'm going to tell you right here, right now, my email, which is not hard to find, according to Kallas at att.net. I'll get myself a new email at some point here. I'm going to ask you, tell your friends that actually know more about all of these things than I do, to send me an email. I would love to take the time to interview them, discuss an idea that they might have. And if it's good enough, they get their own show or their own episode on my show. I think this is a better investment, a better use of time. And quite frankly, some of this is wishful thinking by nature. We're trying to envision a future where Texas leads the way. Now, I know some people out there, they maybe don't have black pill, let's call them gray pills. They say, yeah, well, we're never going to get that with the current governor, the current lieutenant governor, and, oh, you know, they're just always going to be in the way, the rhinos, the Democrats, the this, the that. You know what? That can all be true, but it doesn't mean we can't find solutions, good ideas, and focus on them getting done. I mean, think about it. Did you ever think we were going to have a gold depository in Texas? Did you ever think we'd have a Bitcoin depository? Did you ever think we would have transactional gold? I mean, and I'm going to be honest, while many have said it's a half measure to harden the grid, Bob Hall's seemingly mission in the Senate, it might be a half measure, but it's something. Did you think we would see these things in just the last 2-3 years? I had my doubts, but they're here. They've happened. The question is, how do we implement them and how do we do a good job about it? To be sure, the state has interfered in a lot of local things. To be sure, the state has sold us out to the feds on a lot of things. To be sure, the state leadership doesn't really seem to be very interested in being serious about defending the border, being serious about standing up for state sovereignty, being serious for actually holding the feds accountable for the things that they do. But we could get lost in all the negatives, and we could get beaten down, and we can get all upset and say, woe is me, or we can focus on what can we do? What are the positive things that have occurred, and what can we build on? And what does this look like 5, 10, 20 years from now? Where might we be if we start working on this right here, right now? Now, I want to be very careful how I say this. I don't believe the solution is solely within the bounds of the current Republican Party. I think there are still a lot of, we'll call them, sane Democrats out there. There are a ton of what people would call independents out there that have a vested interest in doing what's best for the state of Texas, doing what's best for their own hometown, their own communities, their own counties. And we as Republicans have to be willing to hear them out. We have to be willing to listen to them and determine if what they're saying makes sense. I don't care that some of those folks might have a D after their name or an I after their name. I think there's probably a whole lot of folks in East Texas and West Texas that their families were, in the other party for decades, and they've come across, they're on our team, but they're looking at us wondering why we're so worried about pick this issue or that issue and not focusing on the more important things. We're choosing the flood important farmland in East Texas so we can have water when we're sitting on the Gulf Coast. We're choosing to do different kind of fracking operations when we have readily available reserves right now. There are a whole lot of things that are happening, even with the solar farms and the wind farms, that just don't seem to make sense. We have the ability to put in a distributive network for battery backup so that we can level out the toll on the grid. Perhaps we're going to do that. I don't know. It's a question of how are we going to get there and how are we going to do it in such a way that we remember to put Texas first. So I'm going to ask you, come along for the ride. Be patient. Be patient. There's going to be a break in here. It's unavoidable. We got to figure it out. We got to come up with some material. We got to come up with a plan of action. And we also have to line up some guests. So again, if you know somebody that might be good on an issue or a couple issues, have them reach out to me. According to Kallas at att.net. Have them reach out. We'll set up a time. This is where it's at, folks. The future is here. We need to do what we can do to make the best of it while we can. So, as it were, this has been According to Kallas. And I am seeing you on the other side at Texas First Podcast. So, check it out. It's going to be hosted over on Spotify. We'll sync it up to everywhere it is. And we'll start going live probably the beginning of August. And with that, thank you for your time. Thank you for paying attention. And I'm out.
TexianPride.com is the destination for Texans who want to show off their love for Texas. We don't settle for mediocre. Our shirts are made from 100% high-quality athletic cotton. They're cool, comfortable, and designed to fit and flatter any body type. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Visit TexianPride.com for your next stylish Texas tee.